This week's calculator tricks, and this isn't a weekly thing, but for this week, are to show you a few probability functions which you'll need for probability tools for this coming week. So, when you get to this coming week, you will need to be able to do something called a factorial. That will be in your reading, it'll be in the problems. And to do a factorial, which is the same as 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, enter. That is 4 factorial. However, you have a nice little calculator function, and let me show it to you. And you would type in the number 4. Then you would go to this thing called math. And see across the top here, you're going to want to scroll across to probability and use the down arrow to get to the factorial symbol. Enter and enter. A lot easier than doing this, especially when you have something like 9 factorial or 33 factorial. You wouldn't want to be putting in 33 times 32 times 31 times 30 times 29, 28, 27, etc. Okay, that's trick number 1. We now move on to trick number 2, which is, oops, lost my calculator. Let me get it back first. And this is actually trick number 3. So let's go back over to trick number 2, which is this right here. Okay, you're going to be asked to come up with a binomial probability distribution. And you'll know it when you get to it, because the questions will ask you to come up with this. And there is a way to, I'm not going to go through the description of what it is, the book does that, but let's go through how you would use the calculator to come up with it. And here's the simple problem we're going to be going through. What is the probability of getting exactly 2 heads when 4 tosses are made? Up here is the generic how-to, but here's the actual buttons you push. So let us go to here, and you're going to be using this right here, distribution, over the weeks to come. Second vars gives you distribution, and we're going to scroll down to binomial right here, enter, and then we're going to put in this right here. 4 tosses is the first, so that's how many times that this is going to occur. I mean, if you had 10 tosses, that would be 10. What's the probability of one of these? And the probability, you either get a heads or a tail, so it's 0.5. And let me get a comma here, 0.5, and another comma. And this last one, exactly 2 heads. So of the 4 tosses, probability 0.5, well, how many times are you going to come up with 2 heads? Parentheses, enter, 0.375. Okay. That one's a good one to have. Now this last one, which is, I think, is the most useful of the group, because it's so tedious to type this thing in. And let me come back to it here. And let me get my calculator up. And I noticed this in 4.7. That's where I'm getting this example from, page 192. And to come up with this thing on page 192, and when you get to it, the book goes through a bunch of explanation, and I try to keep these videos short, but let me show you the calculator trick of how to get this thing. And this is the formula which you would be having to type into your calculator each time. So here we go. And I will show you one last trick at the end of this video that is a generic trick. But in any case, here we go. I've got n equals 20, r equals 2. And I want to substitute it into this formula here, and I don't want to do it each time. So once again, we're going to go to this thing called Math, and we move across to the PRB section, and lo and behold, there's this thing called NPR. It looks an awful lot like this thing. So let me get out of here and set this problem up correctly, and let's clear it. So I'm going to be setting 20, then I go to Math, then I go to Probability, and I enter because I want to get to NPR. And then because r equals 2, right here, put the number 2 in, enter, 380, 380. Sweet. Okay, last trick. So that'll take care of this issue right here when you get to it. And these are in terms of possible arrangements of 2 horses selected from the 20 that are available. Okay, so that's possible arrangements. And here's the last trick, and I show these in my other classes when I'm actually teaching a class back in the day, using an expression that is getting to be somewhat old now. In any case, if I want to go back, and let's say I put 9 times 9, enter, 2 divided by 9, enter, and I think, oh shoot, I actually want to go and I want to redo this one I did right here, this 3 steps ago. Well, you can hit this second entry, and there's one of them. It took me back 1 step. Second entry. Ooh, I got back 2 steps. Second entry. And now it actually will let me change this to, for example, 3. So I get to edit a command line which I had put into the calculator. And enter, and 6,840. This is very useful if you type in some nasty formula and you have to go back and edit it. I am done. This concludes this video.